Everyone talks about fight or flight when we're stressed, but nobody talks about fawn when we shrink ourselves to belong. Today, we're talking about the mental models that help you recognize when you're stuck and why, and what to do about it. Welcome to the Building Thinkers podcast. I'm Tracy Clark, and my guest today is the Executive Director leading strategy and research in talent development at a Fortune 150 company. She has a deep background in organizational psychology and executive coaching. And what she intends to share with us today, these aren't theoretical models. They're diagnostic tools that she uses with leaders who are high performing, but they feel stuck. So I'm so excited to be joined today by
Laura Peterson.
Laura, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
What is it that you build? And you can share a little bit of your backstory in this. How do you come to building the things that you are doing today?
Yeah. So I think I have come into my career, like most people, backwards. I am on my fourth career. So I started my career in construction, where I built physical buildings, literally with my hands as a journeyman carpenter, worked my way up into project management, and then into being the vice president of operations for a construction company. And then I went to grad school and I was told I'm a terrible people leader. And I don't know if you've ever had that wonderful feedback where you realize like, oh, managing things like this does not actually build people. And so I learned how to build people, learned how to be a great leader, got my master's degree in organizational development, leadership, learning, and change. Then I was building leaders and doing leadership development work, also coming into organizations and thinking about culture, so building cultures. Through that process, I became an executive coach, and I started to notice that leaders who thought they had everything figured out in one stage of life didn't have it all figured out. So I started a new journey as both an executive coach and a professor at a couple of universities. And that consulting world, that coaching world, that training world, it helped me build thinkers like you, Tracy, and your Building Thinkers podcast. I love the name. And it also helped me realize that my real joy is coming into the space and like, what's stuck here? What do we want? And why are we stuck? What got us here? And it's usually something in our mental mindsets. I then had two kids and had to pivot one more time because you're a mom, you get it. It's really hard to travel around the globe as a consultant when I've got two babies at home that I also am very interested in being part of their everyday life, not just their weekend life. So I went internal into HR and brought that mindset into global talent development, both from how do we think about leadership development? How do we support people that are on the floor, on the ground, doing the work, not just leading people, but leading themselves? And that's the space I find myself in now. I've taken that 20 years of work, of research, of what I like to call me search, that internal gazing.
I love that.
Yeah. And now I kind of create frameworks that really help people see what they're doing versus what they think they're doing. And it's been an exciting journey.
One of the things that I've also had the opportunity to be a professor recently, I'm on site at the university where I've been a professor and helped support learning design work here. And one of the things that we do in one of our courses, Design Your Life, is ask our students to hold beliefs and mindsets at arm's length and just kind of analyze them. We're not saying you need to change it. We're not saying you should think this way or that. We're saying, let's build the skill of holding something at arm's length and like thinking about why is that there? Where did this come from? So I'm curious as we start to dig into the frameworks and mindsets, where do you start with people? You know, if our listeners are, maybe they're not even sure if they're stuck or not, Laura, where do you begin with that, like that me search that you said?
Yeah. So I think the biggest indicator or signal that someone's stuck is that they're either constantly wanting to run away from their job. Like the number of leaders that call me and they say, gosh, I don't know what I want to go do, but I can't go to, I cannot get up for another Monday morning and go to work. And they are stuck in what's clear to me as a flight response. They just want to run away from their life. That's signal number one. Another signal is that they are still going to work, but they're hiding or they're dimming. So they'll go into work, they'll do the things that they're supposed to do, and they start what we call fawning. They'll start dimming their light because they feel like they've gotten some kind of feedback about being too big or being too much or having too much energy. I think that can be really corrosive for someone who's really ambitious. So in their ambition, their desire to conform to the feedback, they start dimming and fawning. And then the other one that I see folks do, and this is where I see it amongst my friend group the most, frankly,
Mhm.
and this is a funny little word, but I call it they fornicate. And I don't mean it the way it sounds. I know that's a really kind of a crazy word, but it's sticky. So fornicating means you escape into things that don't actually add any real value, but it allows you to feel momentarily joy. But it's momentary. It's not actually generative joy. It's escape joy. It's the doom scrolling. It's the online shopping. It's the buying the 40th journal because surely this journal is going to be the one that helps you figure out your life. Or it's getting the next self-help book. There 47, 470, 4,000 self-help books are going to tell you the same thing, which is what do you want? And we
Yeah.
seem to avoid that question, or we convolute that question with what do I want versus what should I go be? And they're not the
Mm.
same thing.
Laura, I see a lot of also my friend group in what you described in the escapism. I'm going to use the word escape. I hear you that there are multiple ways to describe this. I'm still like very PG Bambi over here. But I think I hear like this description. And so sometimes when we're like sitting around happy hour talking about some of this, we're like, we know we understand intellectually that doom scrolling doesn't do anything. And we have these things on our phone to tell us to stop and all this. But why do we do that? Can we unpack some more, maybe where that comes from and how you help people with the mindset if they figured out one of these signals and they're saying, you know, I'm leaning towards either flight or fawn or escapism. Once they've figured out maybe that piece, do you go into kind of like a root cause analysis to understand where that came from? Or what would you say to folks after that?
Yeah. So I think first recognizing the signal pattern. So I start to ask myself questions like if it's fight, am I just constantly aggressive? Am I confrontational? Am I just feeling extra moody?
Mm.
And is it founded? Like, is it actually founded or is it the emotion that's coming to the surface and I'm not really, it's not, I can't put my finger on something that's actually got me moody, right?
Ooh,
If
I
it's,
like the is it founded? Sorry, I
is
need to
it
think about that
founded?
for a second. Is it
Yeah.
founded? Like, does it have roots somewhere? Like, it makes sense that I am upset because this thing happened. Like,
Right.
that's
So
different
something
than,
legitimate happened to
yeah.
you. And then of course you should be upset. But if
Mm-hmm.
it's just like Tuesday and I've been in Zoom calls all day and I've delivered the work that I normally deliver and people are the regular level of annoying that people can be because that is why we get paid to go to work. We get paid to go to work to deal with the annoyances that come up and the other stuff we would do for free. Right. So like, I don't know what your ratio is. My ratio is like 10% of my day. I'm like, this is why I earned my salary today because I've had to
Mm-hmm.
be in this meeting, dealing with these people and this complication. It's all really annoying. But that doesn't cause me to it doesn't cause me to fight. It doesn't cause me to be aggressive or moody or because that's normal. That should be my expectation as a full grown woman, a full grown adult, right? That's
Yeah.
life be lifing. If it's not grounded, if it's not founded, then probably that's a signal. If I find myself getting in these like really like deep collaborations, like, oh, I should be collaborating, but really you're just shrinking and you're trying to be really flexible and you're trying to erase yourself and you're trying to minimize conflict because you're scared of rejection. But again, it's not grounded. Maybe you got some feedback. You're not actually not a team player, but you're just trying to make yourself fit into a space. It's a signal. If you are constantly trying to be in a getting prepared for something, like when I hear colleagues say, "Oh, I read the new Mel Robbins book," and I know they also read the last four Mel Robbins book, and they read three of Brene Brown's books, and then they read there's any number of them. David White's book. I mean, there's just so many books out there. Someone just shared with me, a colleague of mine shared with me that they just finished the 4,000 hour book for the third time. And I said, "Oh, okay. So what are you preparing for? Like, what catastrophe are you preparing for?"
What a good question, Laura. What are you preparing for?
Yeah. And in every case, in all of these scenarios, it's really just they're running away from discomfort. So running away from discomfort right? There's lots of things we can do about it. But when I recognize that I'm running away from discomfort, the next question, if I'm in an executive coaching space, there's lots of other reasons, but we're talking about work, that 4-letter word, WORK, work. It's, am I confusing my calling with my career? Am I confusing what I want to be doing in my essence with my job title? I've shared with you, Tracy, that I've had 4 careers. What's consistent is my essence. At the center of who I am, I love creating new things, building things. I love teaching. I love connecting disparate ideas into cohesive frameworks. And I can do any 3 of those pieces of my essence I can express them in any number of ways. The way I express them, we title that our career. When we're kind of stuck in the rut of our career, we forget or we lose track of our essence. And so when we lose track of it, then we start feeling the discomfort of the lostness, the stuckness. And the question that I end up asking people is, if you're moving towards something meaningful, okay, wonderful. But if you're just running away from discomfort, slow down, check in. Is it that you've lost track of your essence? Do you know your calling? Did you forget your calling? It's okay if you don't remember what it is. We can go find it. That's a path to go towards. And then, who am I when I'm not performing or producing or pleasing? Because that's probably where you're going to go find your essence.
Can you say that
Right?
question again?
Yep. So in order to help you reconnect to your essence, ask yourself the question, who am I when I'm not performing, producing, or pleasing?
It's a really good question for an Enneagram 3, Laura. Laura, there was a note that I cannot currently find, but maybe you can help me think about this, that was in the notes document that we have, where you were talking about when people are so hooked into work as their identity, then everything, every challenge that comes at them feels like profound and detrimental. It was something along those lines.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that?
Yeah. When your job title becomes your identity, you fawn to protect it. You shrink, you say yes. When you've lost touch of your essence completely and entirely, that's when you move from shrinking to really getting lost in distraction, going deep into consumption and busyness. But if you are your job, if that's a thing that you notice about yourself, then you are absolutely out of touch with your essence and getting regrounded in who am I, why am I? Because I am not my job. I mean, Tracy, we hopefully aren't spending more than 40, 50, 55 on bad weeks, hours at our job. We're more than that. And our work should be a place where we can express our calling as opposed to be our titles.
Laura, we've had a conversation before. I think it was like in Instagram back and forth. We had this like long conversation in Instagram DMs one time, and it was about this. And one of the things that I think I have been on a pathway of discovery in this, but one of the pieces of language you just gave me is this distinction with my essence. I have shared with you that I love my work. And because I love my work, I do it a fair bit. And I believe my work is also a piece of what I can provide at this moment in time and into the future for social impact and for pursuing equity. And because it is intertwined in all of that, sometimes I think I have conflated my work identity with my essence, for sure. And I think in this conversation that I had with you that is continuing here is like giving myself permission and recognizing that no, it's my essence to help humans flourish. And so whether it is in the like boundaries of work time, or if it's the like where I volunteer in my community, or the way I'm trying to help raise my 2 boys to be humans who are flourishing themselves so they can help others, like it's not contained to this one space. And with that, it kind of, I was talking to you about like rest and how rest is sometimes challenging for me. And you push back to say like, maybe it's not the way other people rest. Like maybe for you, it is doing something still that is restful versus this like doom scrolling and other things. And so I'm wondering if any of that resonates for you and some of the ahas that people that you're working with or coaching have that distinction between identity and essence. And then, like giving themselves kind of some space to say, my essence is just not so tightly bounded into one place.
So there's a couple of big call outs. First, I'd say is most of the people that I've worked with over the decades have a similar goal. They have a desire to help other people flourish. They have a desire to make a big impact in a culture, in a group of people, to grow others, to help people find their missing spark. And when that energy is always out, 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 the question I end up saying is, but how are you doing that for yourself? So, Teresa, I think one of our pieces in our text exchange was, okay, but you're also the human that you need to help flourish. Like,
Hmm.
you can't go helping other people flourish. You can't say, oh, my goal is to ensure that humans flourish and not recognize that you are human that must flourish. It's the same when I hear colleagues and former clients say, well, I really need to get so-and-so's buy-in on my growth. Well, you need to get your own buy-in on your growth. Do you even trust yourself? Are you even familiar with your own needs? Or has that gotten a little bit away from us? I also deeply believe that we should on ourselves. Like I should, I'm
Oh,
not someone
oh,
who's
yes.
super, yeah, right. I'm not personally someone who's super comfortable doing nothing. I cannot sit on the sofa and veg out. Like watching TV is not restful for me. Going for a long hike, uh, going
Yeah.
for a run is restful for me. Weeding my garden or planting new vegetables is restful for me. Moving my body is what works for me. So I try not to shit on myself when I hear my friends say, "Oh my gosh, you should go to the spa day," or you should go watch this on Netflix." And there's a part of me that goes, "Well, first of all, don't shit on me. Don't tell me what I should go do. I got it. I'm, and I've tried that. I didn't like it. Nothing wrong with it, but it's not for me. For me,
Mhm.
I like to think about this trust equation. I trust my voice. I've worked hard. It's one of the things that I find myself doing more and more and more, especially as I get closer to 50 with the population of people that are around me. Spend a lot of time building our personal intuition. And in order to do that, we have to get deep in trusting ourselves. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this model, but Macer and Green Galford, Macer, and Green came up with something called the trust equation. They've got a whole
Mhm.
book called the Oz Principle, and their trust equation. It's a math problem. So in the numerator, it's credibility, reliability, and familiarity, and then denominator, it's self-orientation. And most of the time, all of us walk around going, let me judge Tracy. Is she trustworthy? Do I trust her? And do I give trust or do I have to earn trust? Like, that's the conversations we have all the time, always outward. What I have noticed is if we were to flip it and say, have I lost trust in myself? Well, probably. If I'm doom scrolling, if I'm doing massive consumption, if I'm fawning and making myself shrink and get smaller, all I have told myself is I'm not credible. I don't believe in my own shine and my own power. If I can't answer the question, what's my essence? What do I love? What's my calling? Why am I here? I've lost touch of how familiar I am with myself. So if we start just shifting the narrative inward and getting realigned in our trust of our own self while managing ego, which is that denominator, it's said self-orientation. It's like the most academician way of saying ego, right?
Yeah.
Right. It's not for like label's sake. If we manage not our ego, manage instead our the top line, the higher trust, self-trust, we will likely start listening to our intuition about what we need in order to rest, in order to repair, in order to reattach to our essence, in order to say, oh, I don't need to run away from this job. I need to weave more of the things that light me up in it and notice it and turn down the shine or the spotlight that I'm putting on the things that I hate. There's always things that we don't like in our work, but probably we've over tuned into what we don't like. And then instead of saying, well, how do I add more that I like? We go run away from our discomfort.
Mm, that's so powerful, Laura. One of the things that strikes me there, somebody recently said to me, Tracy, like, when do you become, these were literally their words, when do you become such a bad A? It's a clean podcast, so I can't say that. And
Yeah.
I was like stopped in my tracks because I realized that was A, not really how I saw myself internally, But then I was thinking about it, and I think a piece of it for me, well, I've done like 4 years of therapy and lots of other things, but a piece of it was this self-orientation that you're speaking to, and this self-trust that because, and this was in the work context, I've grown a lot of confidence from competence, from doing the thing more and more. My projects have gotten larger. They're more complex, and then they are successful. And that success is growing confidence that is earned, that is from doing the work. And I'm trusting myself more to, like, when a hard thing now comes in the project, I'm like, oh, I've seen that. We can figure that out. Anything is figure outable. Whereas recovering perfectionist Tracy would be like, feedback, fawn, probably all of these things, like must overwork to fix the thing and like over prepare, or, you know, and I just don't do that anymore. And I think that was over time. But I think what I'm getting at here is, have you seen a piece of it be that over time, you know, as people have been doing their job for longer, that they do grow in that confidence, and that helps with this equation?
So yes, and the longer we're in a role, absolutely right. Practice precedes confidence. So doing it is what gives us the confidence. When we're told as women we should put our hands on our hips and get ourselves really big, as if that will build the confidence, it certainly helps for a hot second, but probably not lasting confidence. Confidence comes from doing it, practice. And there are 2 things I'd say about it. First is you need receipts of practice. And you can't just say that I did a thing once, or that I used to could, right? I was a general contractor in Maryland like 20 years ago, y'all. I used to have confidence in being able to build a house and build a parking lot and build commercial buildings. I don't have that confidence anymore. I have no receipts for 20 years. So when I get worried about, like, am I good at that? Or, oh, that's a hard thing that just popped up, I have 2 options. I can first have bravado or ego that says, oh, I got this. I can do this. That doesn't work for me. And I don't find that it works for most people in the long run. The second thing you can do is go, where do I have evidence? Where do I have receipts that I've done hard things? And what's the lesson I can pull forward from that? And if you don't have recent receipts, because sometimes you're in a role for a really long time, or you're kind of doing the same kind of stuff. I mean, I've had 4 different careers. What gives me confidence is that every time I've pivoted, I thought I was going to fall apart. I thought my world was going to end. I thought I was going to be broke and destitute, and it didn't happen. And well, I don't recommend just changing your career to do that over and over again. Instead, I recommend being new at something.
So good.
So you can have transferable confidence when you go practice something that you haven't practiced. So this is silly. I'm really terrible at racket sports. Like, I'm super athletic. I run. Yeah, I run. I lift weights. I work out 6 days a week. I'm like all the things. If you give me a pickleball racket, a tennis racket, a baseball bat, a basketball, all of a sudden I'm terrible. And it was a story I kept telling myself. And so I have no recent receipts of me playing a sport, because I'm a grown up and I don't play sports anymore. It's not obvious to me how to go get into that. I joined a new gym. I went and signed up for a basic class, and I was terrible. And I kept on being terrible until one day I wasn't as terrible anymore. And now I have a new receipt that says even an old bird like me can go learn something that is so outside of my identity. I've always told myself I'm no good at sports. I can learn it enough. I've now given myself the credibility that feeds my confidence that I can trust myself. Anytime I get off track, I have a way to get back on track. I've got receipts that prove that I can do it.
Laura, I'm thinking about 2 things. One, there is an Austin Kleon quote where he talks about an amateur pursues her work in a spirit of love. And I like watercolored that at one point and put it on my desk to remind myself of this being new at things, being an amateur at things, and continuing to grow and learn. I never want to be stagnant. I love learning all that. And the other thing it makes me think about is, I've said before, don't be afraid to be seen trying. And this is my reminder to myself to continue to fight perfectionism, to continue to fight against the like 24/7 feed that we have of everybody else's highlights of all their accolades that we compare to our one real messy life. And I think that that has also opened up for me some recognition that like nobody knows what they're doing. Like, yes, people have expertise and yes, people are growing, but the reality is day to day, nobody really knows what they're doing. Everybody's figuring it out and using all the skills and things that we have to do that. And that is freeing to me, like, especially in this, I don't know to what extent your role is currently overlapping with AI and dynamically changing technology and things like that. But everybody is figuring that out in their place. So this idea that someone has mastered it and they are the expert, therefore, if you were not researching AI, at least 10 years ago or something. No, you're not an expert. Everyone's figuring it out. So I think those are some things that strike me. And as I think about, our listeners and where they may be coming from. So let's say they've kind of analyzed and they've walked with us along this. They figured out some of these signals for where they may be stuck and they started to ask themselves, some of these questions to get deeper underneath that. Are there other things that you would recommend to folks to maybe carry that with them? Like they've analyzed, they've figured out some of that. How do they, in the day-to-day, go forward and maybe remind themselves? Or if you want to take us in another direction, feel free.
There are a couple things that I think about around how do I stay in touch with this space where I need to learn and grow and trust myself. But there's also, it reminds me of the parable of the acorn and the tree. Are you familiar with the parable?
This sounds familiar, but I'm not
Okay,
sure.
think of a big tall pine tree. So the entire embodiment of that pine tree is encoded in the acorn. And when the acorn plants in the ground, that tree is going to grow tall. And I think about that tree growing, and it goes really quickly at first, just like we do when we're children. The story, the parable says, it grows really tall, and now it's a full oak tree or pine tree or whatever. I say pine because we're here in North Carolina, that's what we've got. But the big tree, right?
Yeah.
Most parables fall short. They end too soon. So I'm going to tell you the rest of the story that we never got. And this is Laura's version of it. So maybe it's trash,
Yes.
but I think it's the story we need. When that acorn, it's encoded to only reach a certain height. We're all encoded for ambition of some kind. And we reach a certain level in our career and we've spent our entire careers accelerating. And we think that once we kind of get to a level, oh no, it's over and I've got nothing more to learn. I've got nothing more to offer. And this is why I'm stuck. This is why I can't attach to my essence. I think we've got to change our internal narrative to start asking the question. That oak tree still has new leaves and branches growing out of it, but it's filling in. It's getting fuller and it's becoming a habitat for others. So I like to ask myself, what am I learning? Because I need to constantly be adding more leaves. Like you said, I love learning. And then who can I be teaching? Who am I here for? Who am I becoming a habitat for? I don't need to change my ambition or my trajectory. I want to widen my impact. I want to create shade. I want to have a more meaningful habitat forming approach to my career. And so now, instead of getting stuck in the ego of title, role, growth, there is a natural limitation to that growth. I have zero ambition to be a CHRO or more than that. I really love where I'm at right now, and this could be a good resting place for a minute. So what can I do to express my essence and make sure I connect it with others? We are we are a people. We're not solo endeavors. So what can I do not to shrink myself and fawn, not to waste my energy and time with ignoring my discomfort, but reorienting it to say, what is it that I love and how do I give it away? And I know some of us will say, oh, women are always giving things away. This is a different kind of giving away. This is not giving away to dominionize yourself. This is to grow others, to substantiate and expand what you know through and with others.
It is also striking me that you have redefined ambition in that parable. I think that there is this narrative of, if women are gonna like make it in the workplace, they have to do, and then fill in the blank, right? Which is just simply not true to begin with. But what you just described was, and I love how you explained that it's not, giving things away in a way that may diminish, but that it is for this purpose of growth and impact and expansiveness. And I can just now imagine this metaphor of the tree and the idea of giving shade to others through the work that has happened, and giving that away freely from a place of our own flourishing so that others may also flourish. Like what better purpose for humans than to help others in that way?
I mean, you and I talked about how hard it is to learn something new. And think of it, there's no greater in my life for me, given my essence. I find that there's no greater joy than being a safe place for someone to have their rubbish phase. Given Austin Kleon's quote, right? We all have a rubbish phase. So be someone's safe space for their rubbish phase. Help them get better. It's not a limited pie. The more people who are great at things, the expands the pie. So it's not a space of competition, but it's a space of that is real, genuine flourishing.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that strikes me there is like, it would reduce so much like individual and collective anxiety to just say it's okay to be rubbish. Like it's okay to be rubbish while we're learning and figuring things out. And then like we haven't arrived. And so there will be bad days. Susan David's work in emotional agility was really helpful for me. And I returned back to this idea that essentially to opt into some of the negative feelings. I used to like push those away and not want to feel those and want to just kind of stay in the good ones. But the bad ones, like the quote unquote bad ones, they're there for a reason and they are wisdom. And when I recognize that, then I can go, going back to kind of where we began, I can now see emotions as information and as wisdom for what's happening, like in my body, in my mind, in my world, so that I can now have language for connect to my essence and be who I'm intended to be in all my different roles of mom, wife, CEO. And so when you're thinking about what we've talked about today, do you have any thoughts about if only people knew when it came to these mindsets, these frameworks? I know there's lots of things. It's like you could have a dissertation here.
I think that if only people knew that you can't think your way through this, you have to feel your way through this. Right? You have to just start with that level of so the tell is when people are like, well, I've thought about this, I've thought about this, and I've updated my resume, and I've been stalking things on LinkedIn, and I just know that I'm going to find some better role out there for me. And I mean, that's like the biggest lie we tell ourselves. There is no such job working for someone else that is perfect. It's a lie. It's no such thing. It might even be perfect for like a month, 2 months. And then the inevitable wheel shows up and you don't like something about it, and all of a sudden you're upset about it again, and you end up going back to the same cycle. So you can't think your way to clarity. You can't read another book. You can't take another course. You can't get another certificate. You can't go look for another job. You can't update your resume. You got to recognize it. The discomfort that you feel, you need to feel it. And you need to rebuild trust with yourself and start with really small commitments on where you think something might be missing. Where are you not showing up for yourself? If it's credibility, or where are you not believing yourself to be able to say, where are your receipts? If it's reliability, where are you not showing up for yourself? You're prioritizing everybody else, but you haven't taken your vitamins. What? You haven't gone to the gym? Excuse me? No wonder you don't trust yourself and you're running away from your discomfort. You don't trust your intuition. So making those small commitments to somewhere along the way, rebuild trust with yourself, reattach yourself to what do I love? What lights me up? What is my essence? That work is cerebral, emotional work. It's not intellectual work. Once you can hear your voice, then you can actually start distinguishing between essence and expression. Otherwise, you can have all the mental models and the books in the world. You won't trust yourself to do it. And you'll just keep defaulting back to, I'm going to buy another book. I'm going to get another journal. I'm going to go zone out on Instagram.
Laura, I'll be patiently waiting for your book to come out because I have 6 pages of notes in my journal number 75 or whatever this is. I could just talk all day. I'm so grateful for your time and your energy and your expertise and these lessons that you've shared with us that I know I'll be thinking about for a long time and going back into my notes and unpacking this. But I really appreciate how you really walked us through this starting place of recognizing the signals and the things that could be going on, and then, how to kind of hold that at arm's length and understand if it's founded or not. And then using these frameworks and mental models to go deeper. And to your point, it not being intellectual work, but emotional work that can't be rushed, that doesn't have a dollar amount to it, but that is key to this flourishing in our work and broader lives and for the collective.
Yeah, certainly. I think I would offer that since we are building thinkers, the kind of thinking we're building here is intuitive thinking. It's the body's compass on your emotions and where do you feel it, how do you feel it. If you want to go deeper in this space, I think somatic leadership work is a really good place to go. I also think if you want to check in on like, why is this signal happening? Diana Hill and Deb Dana's work on polyvagal ladder work is really excellent. There's a couple of really nice YouTube videos, Diana Hill and Deb Dana. They make it very accessible. Once you start tuning in, you won't be able to help yourself, but you'll find a new energy, a new sense of liberation. And when you feel that, trust that gut intuition that you're going in the right direction. You don't need a book to tell you that. You can trust yourself on that one. You can find me on LinkedIn, Laura Peterson, HR, I think is my handle.
Laura, again, thank you so much. And then to our listeners, thank you so much for listening to the Building Thinkers podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we would so love it if you would leave us a rating and review. That helps more folks find our podcast in the algorithm.